Hi, my name is Gordy Hogue, and this is Community Connections. Each of us have stories that help us understand each other and help to bring our community closer together. I have been very fortunate to have met many interesting people. People who have had a positive, profound impact on our community and far beyond. People who have had incredible life experiences and fascinating stories. Community Connections is about these people and about their stories. I'm sure you'll enjoy meeting these amazing people as much as I have. Thank you. Please enjoy. Welcome to Community Connections. My name is Gordy Hogue, and today's guests are remarkable. I can't think of another couple that has done so much and made such a positive difference in the lives of so many people in our community and in our province. They have given of their time and their energy and their resources to a myriad of programs, from the Symphony to the Peace Arch Hospital, Hospice, Star of the Sea, theaters, food banks, Bell Center for the Performing Arts, just to name a few of the many, many contributions.
Vancouver Symphony.
Welcome, Helga and Vern Hoing to Community Connections. Thank you for being our guest today.
Our pleasure.
Helga, you can talk a little bit about how you grew up and how you ended up meeting this gentleman.
Yeah, well, I grew up in a very small village in Bavaria and close, only kilometers away from an Olympic town. The Olympics were there in 1936. And little did I know that I would end up in another place where the Olympics were again. So that was in 1940 in a place called Eschenlohe, close to Garmisch-Partenkirchen. And well, my childhood was a bit marred by the Second World War, but yeah, we all made the most of whatever we had. And I went to school, was privileged enough to go to secondary education then, and worked at a notary. And because of the legal knowledge that I gained there, I got a good spot at a bank in Garmisch, and that's where I met a fellow by the name of Ludwig Schillinger, and he happened to be the brother-in-law of Vern. And so that's how the connection started and how we met. And that was in 1962. And we just had a whirlwind kind of weekend get together. And 6 months later, we got married because only 3 days we've had, Vern had to go back to Canada. And yeah, so I arrived February 2nd, 1963 in Vancouver here, and we lived in New Westminster for 2.5 years. And Sonia was, our daughter Sonia was born in New Westminster in 63, late 63. And we moved in October 65 to Coquitlam and lived. Marcus, our son, was born in 65 and no, 66, January 66. And we bought a house in Coquitlam and lived there for 11 years. And I was quite involved then in several things. In the Mother's March of Dimes was one of the things. And they asked me to collect money somewhere in Coquitlam. And I said, no, I won't do that. I do it in my neighborhood because my neighbors can't refuse me. And they never heard of something like this, that the volunteers should go and dictate more or less where they can collect, but it worked out very well. And yeah, I was involved in Girl Guides with Sonia, and yeah, and I taught catechism in our church there, and there's a nice incident. I wanted to see what my teachings were, whether I was successful. And I asked the students, one of the questions was, where was Jesus born? one little fella came up with the name of Bellingham. So I thought, no, I better quit. And we actually moved, we moved to South Surrey that year anyway. So my job was done. Yeah, and in South Surrey here, as you mentioned, yeah, we were quite involved. That's actually where I met you when I started out with the summer theater that was very successful for many years in White Rock. And then I carried on with the White Rock Festival of Strings. And yeah, with the hospital and the symphony in Vancouver and the hospice, and if a month had 5 Tuesdays, I was in the soup kitchen with our church. And yeah, I'm proud to say to be part of this community and have thoroughly enjoyed all the time I spent there.
And obviously made a profound positive influence. Vern, can you talk a little bit about where you were born and your impression
Yes.
when you met Helga,
Yeah,
how you came to Canada?
I was born a long time ago. I'm 90 years and 7 months. In 1930, in August 1930, in a town called Borken. In those days, you were born in the hospital. And we lived there, my mom and dad lived in Borken. And when I was 5 years old, they moved over to Borlo. And that's where I went to school in Borlo. And in 1939, my dad built a house in the next school district in Borkenvierte. And I went there to school. And my mother's house there, that's where I got to learn the horses. You know, I've heard horses for 45 years. My uncle's place there, and they only had one daughter and a son. And the daughter, with 16 years, had appendix and died, and they were really distraught. And Lena, my mom and dad, wouldn't I come and live with them, which I was glad to do. At home, we were, what were we, 6 at home? And there, when my cousin Yup, my favorite cousin Yup, and I, and he had horses and cattle and pigs and that kind of, all of that. When school was out at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, I was there at my uncle's place. I had to work like really hard, but I really was my favorite. He had been in the First World War. He was a cuirassier. He was a rider. He had the heavy cavalry. And he wouldn't talk much about the war, but I got it out of him often, you know, when we had lunch. So he taught a lot of me, but he made you work like hard. And I enjoyed being there. And next thing you know, then my dad was so concerned. There was the war, was really disruptive. My cousin Job had to go to war at 16. He was a kid, was a tall kid, but he came back. But so many of them. In our neighborhood, there were families. One family lost 5 sons. 5 sons, and you know, if the last one wouldn't have gone, it would have come and picked them up. So it was bad. But after the war, my dad was so concerned that I learned a trade in that, which I did. And it was upholstery, drapery, and floor covering and wall covering, and you were used to do. And I didn't want to do that, for goodness sake. Well, you can walk around with a white smock. Oh, I didn't like that. but I did, and places to learn a trade was hard to come by. But a guy that worked with my dad stood next to him in the choir. Anyway, the short and long, I got my apprenticeship there. And and I learned a lot in trade school. They really had the trade school. One day a week you go to a trade school. And when I graduated there, yes, I got with good marks. And before in school, I loved going to school. And social studies and arithmetic. I was really good. I could count good. That helps later on in life. If you can know what the percentage is, then you do okay.
That's right.
Right. So where do we go now? Right. Yes. So then I worked in the Ruhr Valley, and the pay was really good then in the 50s. And in 1952, they had a winter sport week in Garmisch for the Olympic City there. And my fellow that worked with me, we signed up for that. And lucky I purchased, in Germany, if you work, you're insured.
Health-wise.
Otto von Bismarck put the socialist insurance in the 1880s, was a model for the whole world in the end. And so I got that insurance, but I bought some extra insurance, travel insurance. Well, sure enough, I've never been on skis. In Garmisch, you ski. After 3 days, I had a big crash, ended up in a private hospital and had my torn ligaments. And right. So, but it was good. So I stayed there and looking to stay for a job. And well, the first place I came in the days when you were journeyman, you would travel, and if they didn't have a job, guy was going to give me $20, and I said, no, I don't need the $20. I'd like a job. So the next place was the biggest place in Garmisch, and it was a fancy place if you had anything like that done. I came in there. Is that too long?
Oh, that's fine. You can cover
Right?
that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I walk in there to get a job, but no, I had learned my lesson. So I saw guys working there. I walk up to that and said, whatever this guy is doing there, he looked at him working on the couch. You know, I said, if you let me for free, I'll come and do it. If I can't do it in 2/3 of the time and better than that, you know, says, come in tomorrow morning. I did that. The next thing is come in again. That's how I got the job there. And it just happened to be that the guy that was the lead hand there was going to do his master's, and they had to choose who do we pick from there. They had about 12 people working there, all told, with the wall covering and the floor covering and the furniture. And so they must have said to her, let's hire this Prussian. If he doesn't work out, nobody is offended. Yeah, right. Yeah. So I worked and I enjoyed the job and did well. But a friend of mine went school with, he was gone to Canada and was in Humboldt, Saskatchewan, working for the college, St. Peter's College. And he wrote and said, gee, it's so nice here. And, you know, what he was making. In those days, the dollar was a good conversion. Yeah. So I said, yeah, I'm going to come and have a look. And on the 27th of October, I landed in Montreal. Yes. Mm-hmm. And then I bought a ticket coach because the whole they were all immigrant trains. Yeah. And they all wouldn't. I had coach, and I had a sleeper. They hardly knew where to put me. But anyway, after 3 days, we landed in Saskatchewan, and at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I'd got myself a job through someone in Humboldt. But he had his business in Saskatoon. And so in the fall, we came to Saskatoon, and Saskatoon was then about 50,000 people in the 50s there. Yeah, so I worked there over the winter. In the spring, I heard about Vancouver, others in Vancouver, and I quit. And the guy was really well to work with. We worked well together, but he got kind of mad and says, I paid you still too much. No, but later on we saw them again. Yeah, so I come into Vancouver and in New Westminster, and the next, it was on the Thursday I came, Friday the guy says, in start Monday morning in New Westminster. The guy, his name was Andy Patterson. Yeah. And he had contract with the Hudson's Bay. So I said, learned the whole area, know pretty well, because when you put on the big sale, I would have to confirm the sales of them and sell them some more, which I did. And I got over at North Shore, Mortgage Hill, they call them in North Vancouver in those days. Yeah, so, and then time went and I had a good job and I was good at it. And then you like it. It was never that I went, oh, I got to go to work. And the first year for Christmas, Andy congratulated me for Christmas with $50 and saying a Christmas card. He says the best upholsterer in Canada next to me. $50 was a lot of money in 1956. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, and Helga just is cleaning up. She found a certificate. You want to bring it?
Yeah, sure.
Right. Yeah. I was a young guy on the go, so I joined the Chamber of Commerce. And Chamber of Commerce, you've heard of Flying Phil.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. He talked to us. And around me there, then they give courses. So the courses in public speaking. In the nighttime, in the wintertime, I would go to the Lester Pearson High School. Yeah, Lester Pearson High School to learn English and English 100. Because
101 or
101 or
whatever
so,
it is.
because I had to know who Cleats,
Yeats,
did that.
doesn't matter, all the
Yeah, because
writers.
nobody wants to know about Goethe and Schiller. Did you want to know about Dickinson and that?
Yeah.
So I did that. Among other things, can you see this here?
I lift it up a little higher. Diploma,
Right.
Vern Hoing, in recognition of completed the Junior Chamber of Commerce Public Speaking, signed in New Westminster, 1957.
57.
Very nice.
I was a young guy on the go.
Yes, you were.
Yeah,
right.
and that was fun. Then you meet people easy and that, So I worked with Andy Patterson, the Hudson Bay for the first few years. And when was it?
Not so long.
Yeah, right. No, not so long. Then we lived in Coquitlam and was involved in the Chamber of Commerce in Coquitlam. But what I was surrounded by young fellows that had grown up here, and they were smart enough in education. At senior metrita was the thing when you were high school, huh?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But they couldn't see what I saw, and not because I'm smarter than other people, but I saw opportunities that local people, my guy, the boss that worked for, he had come to the Depression. I said, we should buy the place next door. Oh, he wouldn't take any chances. That was the Depression that sat in their bones.
Yeah.
And so many guys of us that came, we saw opportunities left, right, and center.
Yeah.
And then I met some fellows that were carpenters and builders, and they liked to work with on the job, but the banks and the municipality, they didn't like that. But I tried that, and I was pretty soon was okay at that, and actually I was good at it. And so my several friends, we formed a company, and we built a high rise in 1970, 8 stories above the parking lot. That was a big building in those days.
Wow.
And my friend, 35 guys and a job there, that was his limit. Any more than that, he couldn't handle it, and he didn't want to talk to the municipality. Yeah, so things progressed, and I met my friend Max that you have met, huh?
Yeah.
Right, yeah. He was he's a high IQ guy, but he was already quite blind then. He wasn't blind, blind, but that was a
Never.
yeah, there was that he couldn't get it fixed to blind. But we met, and a friend of his that was a chartered accountant with
Deloitte.
no, there was a Price Waterhouse.
Nice one.
Price Waterhouse, right, Jerry. And he says, you should meet my friend Max. And I said, well, Max, what does he do? Well, he's in manufactured homes. I said, gee, manufactured. I'm in the decent business that didn't have a good kind of connotation. But after you met Max, yes, what would I call it, right? Honesty and integrity plus.
Yeah, absolutely.
And well, you didn't have places to put these homes. So you wanted somebody, and you couldn't hire somebody to build the mobile manufactured home communities. But he got me, and I got involved in it, and then we optioned the property in Coquitlam, and they to Coquitlam. In the end, they wouldn't go for it. But the property in those days went up. We kept it for a few years, and we sold it. And the NDP built sort of some of their housing on it. But then in South Surrey here, we optioned 34 acres, and unless we added 40 acres on the corner of 160th and King George Highway. And in 1972, 73, I was the main guy building, and municipality got credibility with the municipality. You've been in the business. What they want is if guys that keep their word that they can rely on. They don't want to get embarrassed. When I say we'll do it, we did that. And that's when they started with the what was it? The impost that they charge impost per unit and that, you know. Yeah, in those 2 years we built those. And then once we get it going on the King George Highway, I built another park. On the 20th Avenue, build a park. On King George, build another park. And in the meantime, a big park that somebody else built in Coquitlam. Max and us, we put some money to scraped up some money, and bought that. And was 30 acres in the middle of Coquitlam. So then it expanded. When we were done by the early 80s, 1,500 tenants. In those days, today there are some big outfits, but in 1,500 tenants, they need to be managed at different properties and all that. That went good. So where do we go from here?
So when did you meet Maury Musgrove? Was that?
Yes, when I built Breakaway Base.
Yeah.
72.
Right. Yeah, 72,
Yeah.
72, 73. Yeah, and Maury was good. But he had his own ideas of how things should be done. And since you guys know me, I love Maury fine, but that didn't work. That didn't work. Yeah, I'd done well with the ideas the way I did. Nothing that Maury's idea were no good, but you can't have it that if you're the leader, that we are not. Max and I, we were a team.
Yeah.
And then Maury went into another direction.
No.
We've been friends ever since.
Yeah, he came and worked. He came and
Laura's
worked.
heart is too soft.
Yes.
Yeah, and he came and worked with us at the Salvation Army Social Conference.
Yes. Yeah, that is a perfect spot for
Perfect
it.
fit for Maury. So
Yeah.
when you were growing up, what type of things in terms of your upbringing were you interested in the arts, and so many areas you've gone into and contributed work, and was there something about your upbringing that brought out the arts in you, Helga? Was there something about that?
Well,
Yeah.
my father was the principal of the village where I grew up, and he was also the organist. That was part of it. He had to play the organ in church, and there was music in our house constantly. And so, yeah, whenever there was a chance, we would go to a concert or a theater. And whenever there were the festivals in Bayreuth, everything shut down. My dad would have the radio on at full blast, and he would even have the original score and go with it. Yeah, no, I'm surrounded totally, and actually when I was 16, he took me to Bayreuth to watch Tannhäuser, so the opera. And you could take the train to Munich. It wasn't very far to go to concerts. And yeah, I was surrounded by art, and we all, the walls were always full of pictures. Yeah, no, I was very privileged that way to be exposed to art and music in any which way. Right.
And in my family, when I was like that, everybody was in the choir. My dad and the others, and I wasn't going to be in the choir too. But when I came here, the first thing I do was join the German choir, men's choir, only men's. In Germany itself, at home too, if you belong to a church choir, it's usually mixed. But if you're in a men's choir only, then you're in a choir.
Is that the Stella Maris one? What was the name of it?
The choir?
Yeah.
The Lyra.
The Lyra choir.
Lyra male choir.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're still
And singing and making music in a lot of our families there. My dad used to play the accordion. I learned to play the accordion. If you're young, everybody could play the accordion, play an instrument of some sort.
Mhm.
And the same thing was my mom. She was really interested in literature and in art.
That's such a wonderful way to bring people together, and you've been able
It
to.
Yes,
certainly
yes,
is. It's an international language, and draws people. Yes.
So are Marcus and Sonia interested in music and arts as well?
Marcus more so in the, both of them had piano lessons, but don't play it anymore. But they have interest in music otherwise. So, and they do go to the concerts when Vern's choir is singing and enjoy that. But yeah, they have not participated in playing things themselves. Whereas the granddaughter, for instance, she listens to music and only twice, and then she plays it.
Oh, she's good on the piano.
Yeah, she is studying marine biology in Honolulu, so she got herself a ukulele.
Oh.
And she's playing that one. Yeah, and the grandson also, he's self-taught guitar, and he plays
But he
really
played
good.
when they were younger, for Christmas, we had a live Santa Claus coming all the time, and the kids were small. And then Dan sort of was at this, Opa, should I start playing now? Because he, for Christmas, would play, or he could play like Michelle too, just really.
Yeah.
But they get to be bored almost. They play so much, then there's other music. They get inundated with the the
Piped music or,
Yes.
or yeah, whatever. But
right. Yeah. So right.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
you formed a foundation. We're not.
In 1988, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. All along, we were taught up that if it goes well for you, you share.
Yeah.
And I'd done that until I was, what, 40, what was it, 40 something, huh? Yeah, in 88.
You were
How old was I?
you were 58.
I was 58. 58, yeah,
Oh,
and it came to pass, my health, I was struggling with my health in those days. I had been burning the candle on both ends, nervous breakdown, and that, I loved work, but you get so involved, and by the time we had so many juggling, so many balls, that my health wasn't that good. And Max is sort of the way he's blind. We concluded we would like to sell almost all we had and start something different. And that was in 1988 and 87 and 88. And a US outfit bought us out. It was a big dollar in those days. But we didn't sell everything. I always said, well, what about advice? But those that give you advice, then you ask yourself, how well did they do? So I said, if we later on we didn't sell everything, then it wasn't all wrong. If it had been added, we did a lot of it right.
Yeah.
So we invested in some other properties, and we kept something. We kept a big manufactured home community in Coquitlam, in Penticton, a large 140 unit.
Yeah, and that's when we started the foundation in 88.
Because
Yeah.
yes, you put money in there, and then you let it sit, and then gradually you paid it out. And until today, I don't know if is that appropriate to say, Gordy, Helga and I have given away more than $10 million that our Jenny cannot vouch for, and has got every receipt for that. It's without the receipt, you can give money away too, but it is some benefit if you give it away.
You've
foundation.
made an
Right.
enormous
And
contribution.
we all given it gladly and with pleasure.
And we're so lucky that you both came to Canada and made so many contributions to making this country even better. And I know that along the way, I was reading about you going back to Humboldt, and you sponsored a stained glass window in the church there. Can you talk a little bit about that and your experience in Humboldt and how you decided to go back and make that contribution?
Yeah, well.
Well, the first time
this, can you see that? That's
St. Peter's College. Ah, yes, the Hoing legacy at
Yeah.
St. Peter's. Yeah,
and here again.
Yeah, it's okay.
in appreciation. Yes, St. Peter's. Yeah.
Right. And that's why, do you remember when I started out? I started in Humboldt. The guy worked at the college.
Yeah.
And then sort of when you come young, you go there a few times, and then you never think back of it again. but in the early 2000, huh?
Well, the first time we went, when it was your 25th anniversary in arriving,
Yes.
that was in 79.
And then we went there another time. Marcus was with me and you, and I see there's the cathedral, they call it, but it's a beautiful church. The von Imhoff painted the whole thing. It really is under the, what is it called? The Heritage building. So I come in there, and the part of the whole thing is the roof is leaking. And really, it needs to be something done. And those days, I was that way, you know that. I said, who is the guys in charge here? Right. I said, I leave you $10,000 seat money. You come up with at least another $10,000 and fix that roof here. It's a crying shame. Right. And they did. Well, of course, once you've done that, when they want to do something, they find out that guy in BC. But it's been a pleasure all along.
Yeah.
And then what in the 5-6 years ago, they lean on you and the abbot. The abbot is like a bishop. They got thousands of acres and things, but they need money if they wanted to come and visit you. And with a fellow and a doctor that has got 3 PhDs, the Order of Canada, Jim Doosman. He did so much for the health of the farmers in Saskatchewan, O'Connor, the dust and that, you know, when they're on the combines and so on. Anyway, they leaned on me, they came to visit. When you do that, you better be ready to write a big check.
Exactly. So
right.
this interview will be going into the museum and archives and stored in, so people can come back and watch this 50 years or 100 years from now. What messages would you have to give to the people who may be looking at this sometime into the future? What have you learned from your life that you'd like to convey to those people who might be watching at some point? What are the messages you'd want to leave for them?
Yeah, I would say that when you do well, and even if you don't do well greatly, just give and make somebody else happy, or make it possible for somebody to have a meal or to go to school, depending how much you can give. And giving has a certain way of coming back to you in ways that you never expected, or it is a great feeling to give to others. And I would encourage them, if they can, do that, whether you just take somebody for a drive or take them to the hospital or visit. Any little gesture that you can have, do that, and it makes you feel good and makes the other person, of course, feel good.
What a great message.
What I like to say to that is, if more people knew how good it feels to do good, they would do it. Absolutely. And nobody needs to say, oh, he's rich. Whatever is some part of what once you have a roof over your head, and how many cars do you need, then share. And it will make you feel good, and it's contagious. It can be contagious that somebody says, gee whiz, I could do that too. So we have been good. You've never heard of anybody say, there goes Vern Hoing and give everything away, he's poor now.
No.
You're right, but some people act that way as if, well, I couldn't do that. No, it's to make you feel good. And part of the reason why I'm so old as I am, Helga is a gourmet chef.
I know.
And I do what she tells me.
I'm
we
sure
keep
you
on giving.
Always do, exactly. But the message you give there, I think, is so appropriate. And I've read histories of different people who have had nothing yet shared a little bit of crumbs that they've had. And
yes.
that when you have virtually nothing, to see those people sharing that, and knowing that people who have been very fortunate in their lives and been able to share that is such a wonderful message. And wouldn't it be great if the whole world had that type of sentiment?
Yes.
But look at yourself, how much you give to the community.
Wow.
Well, you certainly have given your life to the community, and we very much appreciate that.
Well, I feel I've been very blessed. And I think one of the things, Vern, you've talked about consistently is taking accountability and responsibility, and the work ethic that you've lived. And even when you're looking at making donations, there's an expectation that people are going to be responsible and accountable and work hard themselves. That it's not just a gift, it's a lift. It's a gift with a hand up to help people move on in that. And I think the two of you have sent a wonderful example of that to so many people, individuals and more broadly for communities. I can remember getting a phone call from you once, Vern, and one of the people in your choir was stuck in down in the States and wanting to find out how you could most quickly get them back. And there's just an example of
that was a miracle, but past things that you and us have done together, that you would pull it off. And Dr. Todd, remember him? Right. He says, let's bring that. Oh no, that was fantastic.
Well,
fantastic.
We hope that we have a few more years to just keep on giving.
Well, I'm sure you do, and your legacy long after you've moved on will still be out here and still has built a foundation of change, and as we said, has impacted positively so many lives and so many organizations and made so many people feel better about who they are. And it's not like just giving for that benefit, but giving so that people can feel better and will live that and will change their lives in so many ways. So
yeah, we were happy to do that.
And knowing you and all you have did and your friends, and Gordy, this summer we all go to the ranch.
okay, we can't let people know that we're sneaking off to a ranch somewhere, but that's great.
No. Well, you can edit this whole thing. Huh?
There's an editor, but I'm sure they don't want to leave all of that in. So, any final messages you want to give? I think you've left a great message to us, and I just want to express again on behalf of our community how much we appreciate the many contributions you've made, many that people don't know anything about, but the little individual and small things you've done along the way, as well as the great contributions you've made to the churches, to the hospitals, to the performance centers. You've made a big difference, and we're so grateful for the contributions, and so glad that you came to Canada and helped make Canada a better country.
Thank you for joining us today on Community Connections. Please tune in to our next show as more amazing people share their wonderful stories. If you haven't already, please click on the red subscribe button below, right down there, and view our updates. Feel free to leave any thoughts or comments that you may have. We're always trying to do a better job of connecting this wonderful community. Thanks again for joining, and until next time, keep connecting. Thank you.